out of business school, originally went into finance, right? I was in investment banking. I was just interested in the build and the creation and the nexus and why they started it and what made them build it the way that they did it and decisions that they went through and hiring and all of that stuff. And I just found myself getting pulled deeper and deeper into wanting to build something and create something on my own and the creation of a business and the building something from scratch. And it doesn't necessarily have to be my idea. It can be somebody else's idea that I'm tagging along to, right? But I get fulfillment from the creation of the building and the starting and creating something from scratch that people get enjoyment with, or seeing somebody else buy it or convincing them to buy it, whatever that is, right? That is just my jam, right?
Mark, welcome to the show.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. As someone who has built so many businesses, you have so much value to give. I want to go back to the point in your life where at some point you started to decide that instead of chasing happiness through your business ventures, you want to start chasing impact. What does that mean and how did that come about?
Yeah, out of business school, originally went into finance, right? I was in investment banking. And pretty soon or pretty early on in that journey, I just recognized that in your role as a banker, you're researching other people's business, right? You're trying to get a sense of how are they doing? And is it working? Is it not working? What's the value? And just trying to get a sense of potential success or failure of the business, right? And understanding risk. And I preferred looking at these people and hearing about their journeys and what they're going through, some good, some bad. But it just seemed, at least to me, right? And again, I'm not trying to pass judgment on people, just for me, though, my journey, it just seemed more interesting, more exciting. And instead of looking at it from an auditor's lens or from a financial analyst lens, I was just interested in the build and the creation and the nexus and why they started it and what made them build it the way that they did it and decisions that they went through and hiring and all of that stuff. And I just found myself getting pulled deeper and deeper into wanting to build something and create something on my own. And it's not really a question of about the elusive thought of happiness or the elusive thought of like impact and all of these really heady terms. I just know for me, I enjoy the chess game, if you will, of business and the creation of a business and the building something from scratch. And it doesn't necessarily have to be my idea. It can be somebody else's idea that I'm tagging along to, right? But I get fulfillment from the creation of the building and the starting and creating something from scratch that people get enjoyment with, or seeing somebody else buy it or convincing them to buy it, whatever that is, right? That is just my jam, right? That's my passion. And again, I think from that, it's helped me find, again, this elusive happiness or this peace or fulfillment or whatever you want to call it. That's just what I really enjoy doing. And just the more I've done it, the more I believed in it, the more I found sort of my template, no matter which business I do. I think of it like this 80-20 rule where most businesses that I do, right? Like now, obviously, I'm not going to gravitate towards something that are too far afield, but for the stuff that I do or the sort of the businesses that I like, 80% of the stuff that I've built over years in the playbooks are relevant or they're helpful or they're useful. And then the 20 is usually the subject matter experts, or I need a hardcore developer or AI plugin or whatever it might be, right? And those people I go and I source and I find. But for the most part, I've really built this methodology or this motion where I can pretty quickly context shift business by business and find enjoyment in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so much to go over here, right? Even when we just talk about that 80-20 rule that you just laid out, if I am an entrepreneur who's getting started and I am bogged down by the 20%, I'm thinking about all the things that I just don't know how to do. Can you lay out some of your steps that you do to take control over the situation and focus on the 80 that really matters?
Yeah. So what I would say, like a first time entrepreneur, I would consider them the 20%. And I'm not saying that they give 20% of the value or they provide 20% of the work. I'm just simply saying it's my scenario. Usually a first time entrepreneur is passionate about one thing or something, right? You don't just wake up one day and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. And you have to start from somewhere, right? Something that makes you take the leap or the jump, right? And I'm not saying you have to be fully committed. You're sitting there, you're thinking, why isn't there X? Or this product that I buy isn't nearly as good as it could be, or service, or whatever it might be, whatever that spark is, that's something. And then theoretically, you would dive deeper into it and get educated really fast. And pretty soon you'd become hopefully that expert in that market. right? I'm not saying that everything, right? And what the concept or the differentiation that you have is going to be what makes or breaks it, or like is going to be a huge idea or win. I'm just simply saying you are that subject matter expert. And my first thing would be to go out and find a partner, right? Somebody that can help, somebody that has experience, or somebody that has done it before, or at least has a book, right? And so that theoretically, that person would find somebody like me, or I'm actively out there searching for those people that have a great idea, that are subject matter experts. I agree with their premise or their concept, or I agree that there's an opportunity there. And I want to take my playbooks and append it to somebody that has that subject matter expertise or has a path to get there and they need to augment, right? Now, expanding a little bit on the question, like if you're asking about what are the exact steps to launch a business or to start a company, there's a lot of great materials out there already. Obviously, the lean startup methodology, I believe in that. There's a lot of great books out there, I think, that have already laid out that process. But what I would say is even today, and I know people are always saying that it's more easy to start a business today than yesterday, right? Because there's more tools, there's AI, there's no code solutions. There's so many things out there now that you can quickly get a business out there and going, but that's also true for anybody else. So there's more competition, right? It's cheaper to start a business, cheaper to test with opportunities, with options of testing, of building data, of getting to quickly that MVP and seeing if there's early signs of product market fit. It's also more just competition, if that makes sense.
It does. You brought up something about your past that is so interesting, right? And you talked about how you just gravitated towards wanting to know how businesses are run, how businesses are built, how products are built. There is so much talk about nurture versus nature. When you look back at your younger years, before you knew you were an entrepreneur, did you have that tendency in you already? Or was it the experience of graduating, going through a bank, or realization of what that life looks, led you to wanting to learn more about the other side of business?
No doubt that I think it's a good mix, right? I am blessed beyond means, right, with my childhood and growing up in an environment that has fostered that growth, right, that provided a safe space to try things, to test, to take risks. So that was clearly a good part of it. And having, that solid foundation in education was a big part of it, obviously. So I don't want to say that it was all me and, it's just playing grit and like rolling up my sleeves. No, I totally came from an environment and the ability to take those increased risks, if you will. Also just in my environment and in my family, there are other entrepreneurs that also laid out that template as well, or that groundwork for seeing, okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be this exacting job title or this obvious path. And again, that's forced a lot, at least when I was going into business school, like the preferred path is into the investment banking, is or was into management consulting, right? That was it. And so everybody just got really forced into taking these interviews and thinking about your process and thinking about what it would be like being in those roles, right? Entrepreneurship is way bigger now, right? And there's many programs dedicated to it, right? On many universities. So I think it's way more acceptable now. And I think they do a much better job of instilling in people tools and how to get started or how to look at opportunities or case studies. And they definitely have a lot of material out there as well, especially when it comes to tech. I think just that from my background, I think it was a pretty good mix of just, nature and nurture, being blessed, obviously, and just having this itch. I think that was just personal to me of just, and I could go back to thinking about even just playing video games. And I was always gravitated towards the economic model games of like SimCity or even SimEarth, any of these things, and more interested in those types of games and resource management and like how to like get everything working in a city and optimize versus sort of the point and click games or the Twitch games, right? And so again, I think being more interested in the building blocks of business and being interested in how things work, how things play off each other is just part of me personally and my personality of that other piece.
Talking about the core principles in the personality and talking about your journey over the years and all these ventures. We talked about this in our pre-interview, how we both are very big fans of the quote, how you do anything is how you do everything. So when you are now looking back at your life and you're thinking about the influences that you had growing up, being surrounded by motivated go-getters, and then fast forward so many years, having built so many successful companies, when you are looking at those initial stages, when you're looking from going from step to step, venture to venture, what are some of the core principles you have, Marc Smookler, as a person that you think is driving you through success through all these ventures?
I think a heavy focus on execution is important, not just for myself, but anybody that I bring into a project. And I was just going through this today on an interview for a potential high level exec in one of my companies, is that even at the higher levels, I still expect people to be doers, to get stuff done, to execute, not just strategy and pushing papers around and being a puppet master, right? I think, again, it's a heavy focus on execution and just getting stuff done and momentum. And even when like stuff is like breaking and the sky is falling and life sucks and because it's just always going to punch you in the face, you just get back to, you pick it yourself back up and you just get back to executing, right? And just doing stuff and get lost in sort of the execution. And again, I'm not just saying execution for the sake of just execution, right? You got to be at least know where you're going, but just, step by step, just get stuff done, check it off your list. And if you do enough of those things in the right way with good enough people, usually good things happen, right? And again, I see so many people just get paralyzed by the bad news, or you lost a big contract, or the money didn't come in, or whatever it might be, myself included, right? Where I'll hear some bad news and I'll blow up a whole day. It'll blow up a whole week. And if I just would have sat back down and said, okay, this investor backed out, and go find another investor, right? Nothing is stopping you. And so I think just not, and by the way, by doing execution and picking up the next task, you don't focus on the failure. You don't focus on the loss as much. And you just get back to learning, to doing, and to testing is just really what I think has been so important to me, because my whole past is riddled with failures, right? And I'm not just talking about failure of a company, but there's daily failure, right? And if you really look at it, right? And there's misses and losses and missed opportunities or opportunity costs or geez, whatever. It goes on, and you can make yourself go nuts and paralyze yourself versus just executing through it. And I'm not saying it's always the answer in terms of it's always going to be to a successful end if you just execute, but way better than just sitting in your own filth and obsessing over it and rethinking it and all of that stuff, if that makes sense. Again, there's a number of other things as well, but I think when it really comes down to it, I lean on the execution, right? And I just brute force my way through it.
When we talk about execution, sometimes logic isn't everything, right? We logically know what we need to do when we lose a deal. We logically know how many phone calls we have to make to be able to have this many answer, so over this many appointments set, this many sales made. But what almost always ends up being the detriment of the entrepreneur is emotions. And you talked about losing a day, losing a week because some bad news happened. So when we are focusing on the execution aspect of things, what are some strategies that you've developed over the years to help put the emotion of the event aside and just be able to focus on what needs to be done? Because it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah. First, I'll just say people aren't logical, right? So you can't expect people to operate logically, and you can't control them anyway. The only thing that I would say is the logic that I use is obviously I always roll back to the data, right? And testing, right? And so what I think is going to be, the perfect message to sell a product might not work, right? I don't know. I have tons of examples where, the best converting page isn't the one that I would pick, or the message on the landing page isn't what I would choose, but the data will tell you. So that's a logic that I use. But in terms of just separating myself from the emotions of failure or success or the win, is I've really learned to train myself. And this is all training. That's all this is, right? It's just training your muscle to this is what we're going to focus on. This is what we're going to do. This is what we believe in. And this is how we conduct ourselves, is just really finding ways to enjoy the journey versus the destination, so to speak, right? And so this might work out, this might not, right? Or, I put so much effort in this and then it just flopped or failed, or somebody blew up on me, or whatever else of the emotions in the business is. I don't get caught up in that destination point of whether it's important, obviously, and I wanted to succeed and win. I actually don't shy away from the journey, right? I don't mind the journey. And I think, at least for me, a lot of the emotions used to come up with where if something I put in effort and it fails, it's, oh my God, I failed. Like now I got to start over, or what are they going to think of me, or the embarrassment, or all of these things that pile up into that. I found ways of just appreciating the journey, enjoying the journey, putting my focus on the journey. And no matter what people tell me about the destination, I'm not even focused on that. And I bring it it back to actually learned a lot, or I did a lot, or there was some silver lining along that path that I took that we're going to double click into, or whatever it might be. So that's a big part of retraining my mind and where my enjoyment is focused on and where I see the biggest benefits for me. And so that's just a mind shift. Also, in terms of like deep digging and reprogramming for me, a big part of it, I went to Landmark Education. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Landmark Education is a great just, summit, if you will, that provided a much better tool set, if you will, or scaffolding on how I operate personally in business and the tools that are important for me to use, or how I communicate, or how I perceive people, or just my belief in transparency and authenticity and all of these things, and really just help me rally or focus how I operate, how I view the world around some really more important, better pillars, if you will, so that I don't focus on these negative things or these things that can take me down to a path of negativity or failure, whatever it might be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you give just one example of Mark pre-landmark education and some pillars you've acquired, and like how you would see things differently having gone through that mindset shift that you acquired from there?
Sure. I'm a very anxious person. I'm just a high energy, just nervous energy kind of guy. And I had a lot of problems with perceiving how people saw me, or how they were judging me, or scaring me to try something because I didn't want their judgment, or hey, this person thinks I'm dumb. And if I do this and I fail, I'm going to justify it to them, or I'm going to validate that I'm dumb to them. And so that creates a lot of fear, a lot of blocks, a lot of limiting your opportunities or potential, right? Of this fear of failure because of how other people are going to perceive me. And I went through multiple sessions of Landmark, but the first one was really helping me deal with taking off, if you will, my rose-colored glasses, or how I think other people are perceiving me, or the story around what I'm building around people, or all of this baggage that I'm carrying. And once I was able to work through that, it doesn't happen overnight. This is years of like heavy lifting and painful nights, right? Once you remove that, it frees you up to not have so much fear of failure, to try things, to do things, and to just operate, I think, at a higher plane or a higher level. Because again, you're freed up. You're not encumbered by people's perceptions or their realities or whatever it might be. Now, they still might judge me and all of this stuff, but I guess I'm more careful at this point in terms of who can affect me, right? Obviously, there are people that I do care about, how they perceive me, my wife, my kids, my core group that I use as mentors or coworkers or whatever it might be. But I cut away a lot of the noise of how other people perceive me. And I think that was a huge unlock for me. And really just working through that freed me up. And it also freed up my communication to others, right? So now when I communicate with somebody, they don't, especially people that have worked with me for some time, I don't have a secondary agenda. I don't operate in the gray area. I don't have many hidden meanings in how I'm speaking to people. What I say is what I mean. I'm true to my word. I'm very black and white. And you're never going to have any misconception of Mark said X, but he did really mean Y. No, that doesn't work with me anymore. And that alone significantly increased the efficiency of me working with others, right? It's just very clear communication and obvious. I might not always say the things that you want to hear, right? But at least I'm true, I'm honest, and that clears away a lot of the clutter from the working relationship with others.
Yeah, no, so much truth to this, right? First, honesty with self, and then honesty with others. Because almost always the perception of difficulty of something, if it is greater than the actual difficulty of doing things, we'll never get it done. And whether it be an emotional way of reacting to a certain situation or an actual tactical task that we have to complete. So what you're essentially saying is that having that level of honesty to yourself frees yourself not only from what others are thinking, but also how you're able to impact and work with others. There is a whole lot of work that goes into maintaining this level of mindset on a daily basis. It's one, so many of us have read an amazing book or gone to a mastermind and have been inspired and motivated and learned something real. But the real life of entropy, it just wears us down. What are some of the daily habits that you have to making sure that this is always peaking? This is always where it needs to be and you don't fall below and revert back to old habits that didn't serve you.
Yeah, yeah. There is definitely a zone that you need to get into and lock into. I've worked really hard to build up barriers around me in terms of just mentally, right? Because there is a lot of noise, right? And there's a lot of distractions, and you really have to commit, right? And I feel like you have to exercise your mind just like athletes have to exercise their bodies, 100%, right? And you have to constantly just be exercising your brain like a muscle. And so I go through this process. I can go on and on from making sure that I'm healthy with my body, making sure that I feel okay so that I'm not just constantly feeling sick and tired so that I can't focus. I got rid of a car. I ride my bike to the office every day, and I live in Austin, Texas. So that's a thing. It's hot, right? So I'm pedaling up hills in Austin, 100 plus with a backpack, pants on and shirt. And I wake up and I get to the office as a sweaty mess. It's that commitment. It's okay. I know that I have to have a clear space to work through some stuff and raise my heart rate because that's my higher plane of productivity, right? I know that I don't eat during the day, right? I don't eat. I eat once a day. And that's usually when I get home, 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then that's the one because not necessarily about, I don't want to be overweight, but when I eat, I get tired and I get lethargic and I go through this valley of productivity and I can't afford that. Right. And if I have lunch with somebody, I'm losing 3-4 hours of productivity in the middle of the day. That sucks. Right. And so just over time, I've trained my body that, from once a day and it's a 24-hour cycle and that's it. Right. And so again, that keeps me on that edge. When again, like I'm a big belief in momentum and just constantly doing stuff, right? If I'm just sitting around and twiddling my thumbs, I'll lose a whole day. And so just my mind and my body is just tuned to being in this zone of just being productive. And I've been doing that for so long that I see opportunities and it's not, I don't like this thought of you have to be careful because your time is valuable. My time is valuable, but it's really just about attention. And there's a lot of books and stuff going around about this, that it's not like I'm not limited by time. Like time isn't a limiter for me. It's attention, right? Or where I want to focus my energies, but there's tons of opportunity. And by having these extra hours, I'm able to pick up other stuff and it feeds on itself. And so now I'm in this flywheel, if that makes sense. And so if I drop one thing or two things, or if I say, you know what, I'm going to slow down, I feel like it's all going to come crumbling down because this is all built for speed. Right. And it feeds off of it. And the flywheel is self-perpetuating. And I love it. I love the adrenaline.
Let's talk about some demons.
God, I sound like a maniac.
Here's the best part. Everybody who's listening to this, including me, we identify all of these things. We're just, through this conversation, we're just trying to understand ourselves. I'm trying to understand myself through your lens. And that's what everybody's doing. So my next question
I have a wind tunnel too in my hair. He's like, it's all slicked back. Yeah, sorry.
It looks good.
Keep on going. Keep on going.
Easy to talk ourselves out of stuff.
Sure.
I hate my job, but I should really stick with it because it pays the bill. I get my 3 weeks worth of vacation and there's a roof over my head. My wife is happy. My kids are happy. I should really lose some weight, but really, is it really needed? I am healthy. The doctor is saying I need to lose a couple pounds. I'm okay. My relationship, yeah, it's not the bestest, but she loves me and we've been together for so long. Who knows what's out there? I'm going to put myself out there. Who knows what I'm going to get? Every single day, all of us are faced with situations where we have the ability to take action, but sometimes we don't because we just talk ourselves out of it. And some of those things are really needed, right? Some people need to get out of a bad relationship or a bad job or an unhealthy relationship with their own body or whatever it is. Here's Marc Smookler. He has accomplished so much. He has started companies from scratch, built companies from scratch, partnered with people, successful. You don't have to do this. So is it just the drive and the passion that I want to create stuff and figure it out that keeps making you move forward and make all these sacrifices to build what you're looking to build? Or is there something else going on?
No, there's a lot going on. Look, as much success as I've had, just to be clear, I've had a lot of failure too, right? And for me, I'll say there's definitely been some PTSD from those failures, right? I've hit bottom, right? And I want to say bottom is different for everybody, right? And obviously I want to be sensitive and stuff, but bottom for me. And marriage on the rocks, relationship with my kids on the rocks, depressed, overweight, all of these things. And by the way, I've also hit depression when I've exited a company and had a big win and I wanted to take some time off, or when I had a company that I sold in LA and my wife, who's from Austin, wanted to move to Austin. She wanted me to take time off to start a family, the house, the dog, the kids, all of that stuff to take time off. And I got really depressed, which is just crazy because like kids and everything, but I didn't have any purpose. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't doing what I've built myself up for. I didn't know how to do something else. And again, I'm not saying that I live to work. I'm not trying to be one of those things, but like I identified, and again, this is not about making money. I want to be clear, right? This is about I'm purpose driven to just play chess as it relates to business. I'm purpose built to, I have an idea. I wonder if others find it interesting or valuable. And I want to test that. I want to just unpack it and just get to the bottom of it. And that's it. That's what's interesting and compelling. That's what helps me wake up in the morning and do something. And by the way, like I have to also provide an example to my boys, right? And I can't just be sitting around all day and doing nothing. I want to show them that what it means to be productive. I want to show them what it means to have grit and work hard, have success, have failure, and work your way through it. I have to lead an example for them. And I want to take them through that so that I'm setting them up for success. So there's so many things that are built up that, me just sitting at home wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. And I don't know when I get off the train. I don't know when this all stops, but, and I'm not a big what if scenario guy, right? And so I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to retire in 5 years or 10 years, or this is my, FU number or whatever that might be. I don't work like that. I just know here I am today. I'm enjoying what I'm doing today. If there's something I'm not enjoying, let's fastest path away from not doing that, right? Even if, again, like the destination might be good or bad, like in the know right now, like it's not working for me. And I just that's it. That's all I know. That's all I can see. And I don't think that there's a day, at least not right now, that I would stop doing that. I just not how I'm built.
Are there days when despite doing everything that you're doing to optimize your health, to optimize your time, to optimize your family time, but also work time, are there days when you feel like you're not doing enough?
Oh, yeah, every day. That's every day, man. Yeah, there's always more I could be doing, but that's the drive, right? When I hated my job, when I was working in the investment banking, I hated Mondays. Like I couldn't stand them. And I had anxiety hopping in the subway in New York and like waiting to get to the office on Mondays. And now like my favorite day of the week is Monday, right? Because I have definitely manifested things to this point, right? So that I'm doing things that I enjoy, working with people that I enjoy working with, etc. And it was definitely not always that case, right? But gradually, as you work towards manifesting what you want, what works for you, training your mind and your body, Mondays are my best days now, right? I can't wait to work through or execute through or try or succeed or fail or whatever it might be through these things, or look at this project, or hey, the team's about to deliver a new updated code and see what that does for a feature release and see how people react to that, or there's a new product launch this week and we're going to New York or whatever it might be. Like I look forward to every single one of these things as part of the journey, right? And again, I'm not focused on when is the exit, when is the sale, or any of these things. I'm enjoying the part of being in it.
How do you deal with that frustration though? Because sometimes can be just latent and lingering in the back that I know I should be doing more, but I'm not. But there are times when it really kicks it up, and that can manifest in forms of anxiety. How do you deal with that if that happens at all? That level
Yeah.
of
So
frustration.
yeah, I'm assuming if you're talking about if you're just blocked, or if you're maxed out, or you show up at the office and you're just not focused, or you're not being productive, or you're wasting time, or there's a
Or
number
you
of
know,
things,
there's
right?
more in the
That's
tank. You just know that there is more in the tank yourself.
mhm.
Others don't see it in you because they're looking at you like you're a god. There's so much gap between you and them, but you know there's more in the tank, but somehow you're just not able to harness that. How do you deal with that?
Try to hit a reset button or a reset switch, right? Or just flip it on, right? I'm not saying that I'm like the Black Mamba, like Kobe Bryant or any of these guys, but like I just read that book, Relentless, a great book. Have you read that book?
I just read the book. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so good. But that's what it is. Like I'm trying to get to that point where I have that switch, and that's inspiring to me. So yeah, there'll be days, and it's funny because my son asked me now, like, how productive were you today? And he'll want me to give me like a percentage of about 80%, 70%. And he's like, oh, what a waste. So it's part of the vocabulary as it is, like with my boys. But yeah, there are days that I'm not productive. And so in that case, I'll try to shake it up, or I'll go on like a business trip, or I'll try to change my surroundings, or I'll go on an ayahuasca retreat, or I'll do something to shock the mind or the body, reset, recalibrate, or I'll like all of these things. And look, it's just a trick. That's all it is. It's okay. I did the X. Now I have to do the Y, right? I did the X. So now I got to flip the switch, right? That's all it really is anyway. But like sometimes, yeah, I have to force myself to create that X or that reason to flip that switch and to shock myself into it, because the justification is, okay, taking ownership of like, I'm not being productive right now, or I'm not at my best, or I'm not in my zone of genius, or I know I can do better. Why am I not? Okay, let's reset and recalibrate and just again execute through it. And then you hopefully get back to that spot, just like a muscle. Again, I throw out my back. Why did I throw out my back? I'm not working it out, or I'm not stretching, or I'm not doing all those things. There is a process, right? There is a recipe for fixing it, and you just go through it. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. It does. If I'm listening to this and I'm feeling motivated, I'm thinking there's so much there. But Mark, I have all this, I have the minutia of life in my way. I didn't start young enough. I have kids now. I have responsibilities now. I finally have figured out what I want to do, but the minutia of life is getting in my way. What advice would you give to that person if you just met that person in New York City waiting for a subway?
Yeah, I get it. We're all busy. We all have distractions. Some people are better off than others, or have better opportunities, or more blessed. Removing all of that, you have to put yourself in position for success. When I see people, how I try to help them is if they're miserable, or if they're depressed, or if they're not happy in life, like I ask them why. And I have friends, I have family members, I have a bunch of people that are struggling at varying degrees and at various times. What's your struggle? And if you're open to advice, I don't want to just dump on them like everybody like, oh, you should do this and that. I have a genuine, authentic conversation with them saying, hey, are you telling me, or I'm asking and I'm happy to help, or if you just want somebody to listen, I'll listen. But if they want feedback or help, I'll try to give them genuine advice and help, and invest time and my energy into helping them and providing that spark, or giving them some ideas. And in some cases it is a business idea, or they're miserable at a job, or they're in a dead end way, and I just ask them like, what is their goal, or what would they rather be doing, and if I can help in any way, I will. And again, I have to see that they're willing to like change, right? And if somebody's just going to complain and have that victim mentality, then I can do, then that's it. Like I walk away. Like I can't, like I'm here to help, and I'll push all in if you're willing to do the work. And again, that it can come through, and again, in business and life. I've had friends that have been down their luck that I paid to go to Landmark, and it's not cheap. And so I paid their airfare, the hotel, and for the whole seminar. I'm like, this could help you. And if their mind is open to it and they're not being defensive, then I'll pay for it. I'll foot that bill. And that's always worked out well for me, right? And I've done that in business too, right? Whatever it is, right? And so I guess to answer your question, if I see somebody, I try to help them, right? But if they have to be willing to do the work, and the second I sense that they're not willing to do the work or kick in, I'm gone. That was a little confusing, but sort of
No,
an
it's really
open-ended
good.
question.
It's really good. This ability that you have to identify the true willingness of a person. Everybody's saying they're willing. To be able to truly identify the willing. It also connects with your ability to hire the right person for the role, which you were talking about earlier. You were interviewing somebody. What are some things that you're looking for as identifiers to separate the truly willing from those who just maybe are confused and are not, and not all in?
Yeah, one of my co-founders in a company, and I'm sure other people have said this before, but like he believed it's not how you hire, it's how you fire that determines the success, which is just a nasty way of looking at it. But the point is that you don't know until somebody gets in the tent with you and you go to battle with them to see how they operate, how they perform. This just happened to me, right? We hired this videographer. We were using agencies and all over the place. And so I wanted to bring somebody in full time, in-house, that's doing our video content that we do this is for ClearStem. And I'm not going to call out anything or name any names, but the person wants all the benefits, if you will, of a startup life, right? The equity, the ownership of the projects, the ability to make a difference, to change, and to operate on an island, and just have the flexibility to do and be a creative genius, if you will. A startup is chaos, absolute chaos. And that is stressful. It's things work, don't work, dates change. it's just everything. It's just all chaos. And that stresses people out. And so as much as people talk about they want that life and they want the rewards, there's costs to that. And this person came in and didn't last 2 weeks, hated it. And I thought I vetted them and I talked through it. And this is the benefits and the cost and the analysis and all of that stuff. And but once they got in there, it just wasn't working for them. And as soon as you can, you just cycle them out. Hey, like before this gets messier, right? This is going to work. So again, like you can vet all you want on the interview process, on the hiring process. It's really about when they get in the tent and they start operating and you see those red flags, you just got it. And some of those red flags for me are lack of flexibility, right? Especially in chaos. This victim mentality, right? Where why is this happening to me? Or not my fault, or this isn't right, or like all of that stuff, that dialogue, like I'm so allergic to it. Just take a knee, just own it, move on. Like, again, I'm here to help and support, like just move on. So that's a huge red flag for me, not being coachable, right? So, hey, I have some feedback on this, right? And you can always see when people like glaze over, oh my God, I don't want to hear this or whatever. And they're just nodding through it. And then they make the mistake again. Like, I don't have any patience for that. Like, everybody makes mistakes, but be open to learning. And I'm not saying like I'm some big expert or anything, but if you screw up, own it. If you don't own it, oh my God. And then if I'm telling you a different way and it might not be right, but at least here's something to test and give me the data back. At least try something different, what you didn't work. And if you don't do that, oh my, that's it. Like I'm done. And so there are clear red lines for me that I don't like, that I have. And coming back to, again, how you do anything is how you do everything, like all of this stuff. Like there's these little like mantras and quotes, but they work, they matter because it helps reorient you while you're talking with people, engaging with people. It's like this person isn't launched an email, didn't even do a spell check. Like seriously, if you're not doing spell checking on an email that's going out to customers, like what else is going on, right? And there's ways to fix that Grammarly. And so you tell them, like, why are you doing this? Like you sent out an email with a misspelled word on the subject line, which by the way happened to 500,000 people. Really? And okay, like I get it, you made a mistake, but next time can you just check, please? I don't care what you got to do, task list, like Q&A checklist before you send out an email. And they did it again, and then they get that victim mentality because they're so nervous. I'm like, come on, man, it's a double whammy. Gosh. So again, there's these clear lines, and they're different for everybody. Or obviously, if you're lying or any of those types of things. So if you see any of those things, I'm quick to cut.
Mark, in a world where honesty, authenticity, genuineness, willingness to help are just buzzwords people use to make themselves look good, you stand out as someone who actually is a physical embodiment of these things. Just like the statement, how you do anything is how you do everything. There's an old saying in my culture, when you cook a pot of rice, you just take one grain of rice out and you can squeeze it and tell if the entire pot is done. This sample of conversation that we had, it just gives such a glimpse into the real Mark, into the real person behind the business leader, behind leading all these employees and all these companies. The values that you carry with you are rooted in real life experiences and suffering and failures, the ability to rise above them, learn from them, get better at them. And it allows you to empathize with others who are perhaps in a similar situation today than that you were a while ago. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to chat with you, get a glimpse into the way you think about things. Any last words to the audience? Anything that you're working on that you want to share about?
No, I'm not a big self-promotion guy, but just always be willing to try things and just, especially the theme of the podcast. It's like, just don't be scared of just failure. That's obvious stuff. But, again, like with my successes, it just has come through way more failure, right? And I've learned from others. It's not like I'm some like big guru on this stuff. It's just, again, a lot of it has just been through just learning by doing and just being open for opportunities, being open to work with others and just test, right? And you just can, over time, if you put in the effort and the time, you'll just manifest things that you want. Either you're going to train yourself, right, to get to that point and to be happy, or you're going to find something that just gets you there. So it's either through brute force or through luck. Who knows? There's multiple paths to do it.
Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show. I hope to talk to you soon again.